All right, this is going to be a somewhat lengthy video, so we're just going to jump right in. So the first question is choose to review a few lessons from the Spark PE. So the couple of sections that I looked through, one of them was the middle school section, one of them was the after school section. I'm currently the director of a before and after school program at a gymnastics gym. So this is I bookmarked this as a resource to come back to at some point and possibly institute some of these just within the gym in our after school program. Now the one that with physical education middle school, I looked at the mini soccer games just because I like soccer. I don't know. I played soccer a lot as a kid. And looking through it, I thought it was pretty good. The standards that it teaches focus on dribbling, passing, trapping, shooting, defending, and combining other skills, as well as all of those skills, aerobic capacity for fitness-wise, and for personal/social team play and cooperation, which, is something that is pretty important for me, is having a heavy team play or cooperation. We're all in this together feel. Competition is important, but also cooperation. So and collaboration. So that's what I kind of looked at. Do I feel that the lesson meets the concept of a high quality physical education program? I'm kind of on the fence about this one. I definitely think it's a really good way to get a bunch of kids doing a thing. However, it does fall under the category for me of, some kids are going to be really, really, really good at it. Some kids are going to be awful at it, and balls are going to be flying everywhere. Now, I typically work with really large groups of kids. In my previous program, I had over 90. So team games became really, really hard, and I had to figure out ways to separate out students equally, and it's a whole different ball game. And so I think within the context of a PE class, I think something like this would be really, really nice. And I don't think it would be awful. And you could pair up people in strategic ways for both classroom management purposes and hopefully for usage purposes and for purposes of getting the really good kids, to not whoop some of the other kids. But obviously it does have that component of competition between students, which, it's not bad, but also is different, and can affect the quality of it. Do I feel I could pick up these lessons? Yeah, I could. I think the Spark activity, like I said, I plan on actually putting a few of the after school program ones into practice at my after school program. So hopefully, hopefully I'd be able to pick it up. But reading through it, it's very clear. It's got the prep, the set, the teach, and other things that you can do. So yes, you could pick it up pretty easily and quickly. As far as the next question, which is question 2, after reviewing the essential components of PE, what are key findings, or what are the keys in finding success in implementing the essential components of a physical education setting? So those 4 components are policy and environment, curriculum, appropriate instruction, and student assessment. So for policy and environment, the main thing here is a quote from here: strong policy is important to ensuring that state requirements are implemented throughout the school districts and that schools at all grade levels for all students. So basically, you have to have strong enough policy that forces districts to put money into the PE program and to require students to be in it. Without that, you don't have a PE program. I think that is one of the. I think that's kind of a key to policy and environment. As far as curriculum, the national standards and local standards, or I guess state standards, I think are really important. And you have to be, like this says, the physical education curriculum needs to be clearly articulated, a clearly articulated plan for standards and education outcomes. So obviously you have to have goals, and I think the best way to have those is through general state standards. Now, I think they need to be a little bit broader. The written standards specifically shouldn't be like, oh, they need to know how to play tennis, right? If that ends up being, I think that should, I think that should be more under the physical education teacher's prerogative, and be able to decide class by class, or district by district, or school by school, what the best use of their space and class time for those specific students, what's important. Appropriate instruction. This one is kind of covered really well in the appropriate elementary school document here. Appropriate instructional practice guidelines. So I think appropriate instruction the biggest things, I guess, highlighted are, you can't judge. It's pretty straightforward. You can't use physical benchmarks as grades. You need to make sure that you're maximizing the number of practice opportunities, and you really need to be working and using strategies, not just playing games. So your goal is not to entertain kids for a small period of time. It is to teach them physical literacy, as well as physical just using their basically just being able to successfully be physical in their life. And hopefully through that you can teach them that it's not just to get a grade, it's to learn a skill. Student assessment, same thing. You have to, this is kind of where those state standards will come in. Yes, there's going to be things like, it needs to be individually. Basically, student assessment needs to be individually based, so you can, figure out where students are, figure out where they are along the road, and then figure out where they are when they leave you. And obviously, you should see some general improvement there. But hopefully, on a more personal level, personally that they've improved, or they've gotten a desire to be more physically active in their life. Hopefully that's the end goal, is to get students physically active and enjoying being physically active. Because if they aren't enjoying it, they're never going to continue it as soon as they get out of your class. Question 3. After reviewing the physical education academic subject, click. This is this guy here. What were the 4 statements you found in the document that helped you understand the reasons why physical education is an academic subject? The most of these for me, or I guess the first one for me is it's required. Now, there's a lot of things that are required. We're required to feed kids. Doesn't mean lunch is an academic subject. But this combined with a few other things. The second one here is standards. So the required component plus the standards component is really indicative of the fact that it is an academic subject. Now, it is physical, but that doesn't mean it can't be also academic. The fact that it is required to have standards does kind of show, its more academic side. It has goals that you're trying to get students to reach, and the goal is to improve their lives over the long term, which would be the goal of all academic subjects, right? The next one that caught my eye is the assessment. You do have to assess them. They have to meet benchmarks, not particular, basically they have to show improvement. And the goal is, you have, as a teacher, you have goals to get them to. I didn't really include grades in this. I think that's kind of under student assessment. But the biggest one here is teacher certification. You have to have a certification to teach PE. That means you have to know what you're doing in order to teach it. That means not everybody can do it. That probably leads to the fact that, there is more than just kids running around in a gym going on. in the PE classroom, right? So I think the fact that there requires that, well, only 40 states, but that's enough. It's majority. Some of them are holding out. But I'm sure that most of them are there now. This was as of 2012. But the fact that teacher certification is required shows that, if I'm going to go teach, math in high school, I have to know what I'm talking about. Because I am teaching something because I know it, right? Same with physical education. You have to know what you're teaching in order to teach it. It's not just a bunch of kids running around in a gym. Question 4. It says, let's see. Oh, there's a couple sections here. Throughout the first 3 sections of the class, there's been an emphasis on physical education, blah, blah, blah. What are some of the evaluation changes that physical education faces? I think the largest one of these is, kind of across the board change, not only within the physical education sector, but also within the larger academic section, which is a less of a focus on specific, can they achieve this score, or run a mile in this period of time. While those numbers can be important, and some of that type of evaluation is necessary, I don't believe that is the direction that school is going to be heading in, and the education sector is going to be heading in. I think we are headed towards an improvement model. So, how much have they improved from the beginning? And are they, obviously there's going to be benchmarks along the way, but the main goal will be improvement. So that's kind of, and with that comes different evaluation practices. So you can't be judging them on, can you run a sub 5-minute mile, right? Which not very many would be able to, or even a sub 10-minute mile. Shoot, I can't run a sub, I think I run a general, I don't run a lot, but like a 9-minute mile, and so having these requirements, these hard numbers as requirements, and as evaluation practices really pushes, the physically advantaged forward and the physically disadvantaged down farther. Obviously, if they're physically disadvantaged, there could be some things going on that are not in their control, right? So we need to, I think the thing that the evaluation of physical education is going to need is a more progressive model, such as something that measures a student's improvement, but also might even take into account some less physical stuff and more mental things too. A specific, or let's see here. Why is it so important to emphasize the knowledge that physical education is different than physical activity, recess, and sport? So this article went pretty deep into that, but I think broad strokes here. It's the way that it's not just exercise, right? It's not just running around. It's not just playing games or learning how to play games. It's specifically teaching them to be physically active, and that the physical, or like with recess, right? Recess is a time to get out and get your energy, and it's a very important time. But the goal here is that, or the key here is that a good physical education program is taught by people with credentials. Here comes that credential thing again, right? So the fact that they're taught by people with credentials means that it's different than just recess, right? So, but sport, sometimes people that teach sports are ex-pro athletes, or and the thing about those, and this article touched on it as well, is that the physical education, the PE is different than sport, because sport is one specific activity, whereas PE is more trying to create a well-rounded physical lifestyle and a physically active lifestyle that's well-rounded. We're not trying to teach you how to be a pro tennis player or how to shoot threes all day long, right? But we're just trying to teach you to enjoy physical activity, and figure out the joys in physical activity, and how that can lead to better outcomes with it, with a lot of other things too. So that is the last of the questions. Yeah, 15 minutes. Have fun. Thanks.